Welcome to How Government Works. I'm your host, Victoria Alfred Laveau. This educational series by Philly Neighborhood Networks is an opportunity to learn about city officials who are a little less recognizable than the mayor or the president, but very important to making things work in our city. Today we're talking with Philadelphia City Commissioner Lisa Deeley. As a refresher, the city commissioners are a three-member bipartisan board responsible for overseeing voter registration and elections within our city. They set and enforce departmental policies, administer voter registration, and conduct elections. This includes tasks like purchasing voting machines, managing polling places, and ensuring the accuracy of voter rolls. They are elected every 4 years along with the mayor and city council. Welcome, Commissioner Deeley. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is wonderful. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, let's start from the beginning. You've been involved in politics and government for quite a while. How did you get your start and what led you to run for city commissioner?
Well, certainly, I've been involved in government and politics. It feels like my whole life. So, just a little background. I'm a child of a single parent, but I am, close to 60 years old. So, when I was growing up, I was one of the only kids in my class, if not the only kid in my class, that came from a single parent family. So my mother and I spent a lot of time together. There wasn't the support services that you see now for kids in that situation, and it was just me, my mom, my grandmother usually all the time. But to that, what does that have to do with anything? Well, my mom got involved in politics early. She was a neighborhood committee person, and I spent all my time, my mom would be out canvassing, I would be with her. If the neighbors were coming to the door to ask about a traffic light or why there was a pothole or what are we going to do about, the bar down the street, it was all happening in my kitchen, at my kitchen table. And I was taking it all in. In addition to that, every election day after school, I was at the polling place because there was nobody to watch me. So my mom used to vote in an old barber shop in my old neighborhood. It was a real old barbershop, and the barber had these square leather chairs that were on a pedestal, and they spun around for the barber to be able to, get around the whole head. And I used to sit on that chair all afternoon into the evening, spinning and spinning. A little, I know, before you know it, I was really taking it all in like a sponge. So
Yeah, absolutely.
when I turned 18, I said to my mom, I want to be the committee person, a committee person. My mom said, well, that's great, but I'm already the committee person. I think that you should run for judge of elections because it's important to know what's going on inside the polls before or start working outside the polls. So I was like, all right. So I ran for judge of elections. I served as a judge of elections in my ward for a term. And then I ran for committee person and I won, and I was a committee person for 30 years before I ran for city commissioner. Once I ran for city commissioner and I was elected, I resigned my position as a committee person. So, it's for some people, they're like, oh, I've been doing this, for a long time, or, and they mean it and they're sincere about it. But I always like chuckle a little bit because I really have been doing this my whole entire life. I've never imagined, as a young girl, 10, 11 years old, spinning on a barber chair that I would be here. Certainly never imagined that, what happened in 2020 would have happened in my life and I would have been on a international spotlight. None of those things were crossing that young kid's mind as she was sitting spinning in a chair. But here we are.
Wow, that is quite a journey. That just sounds like you were really involved from day one, and when you have to actually do your work from day to day, a lot of it is probably overseeing elections, although there are many days in between. Walk us through what it's like to be a commissioner on election day. What are some things that could go wrong that you look out for? How do you handle them in the moment?
Being a commissioner on election day is it's kind of like being a coach, on championship day, because you know that you've put all the work in, you got all the plays, you've worked with your staff, everybody knows what their position is, everybody knows the scheme. If this happens, we do this. If this happens, we do that. it's just like, running an offense or defense, you got the whole game plan. You're spread out. All right. And then, 5:30 in the morning, your phone rings and, a polling place is locked and they can't get in because the polling place is surrounded by a fence and there's a padlock and nobody knows how to open the padlock. Or, 7 o'clock rolls around and, they can't get the machine turned on. Or one year, this is a true story. We were getting calls about a polling place that didn't open because the poll worker the judge of elections hadn't showed up. So that happens, occasionally. And, we have to run around and find out we have to get the box, the white election materials box. We have to reproduce it, get it out to a polling place. This was before we had electronic poll book. So we're trying to find the judge. We're calling. We can't get ourselves. We send somebody we call the house. The spouse answers and they say, that they had left in the morning. What do you mean they're not? What do you mean they're not there? You're like,
You're missing?
yeah. So here the individual unfortunately fell on their way to work that morning. And, I don't know if they broke a leg or whatever, but needless to say, there was an emergency, an accident, but, so we found her, we found the box, she got the help she needed. We were able to open that polling place up. But the point of all that is we never know what we're going to get. It's like game day. You have it all planned out, and then you're first play of the game, and somebody hits the quarterback, and he's out for the whole game. Right? It's like you don't know you don't know what you're going to get. Or the weather was forecast all week was supposed to be great, and all of a sudden you're playing football in a rainstorm. You have to you got to change your scheme around, move things around. Well, it's kind of like that on election day, being a commissioner. We have the best team. There's no team better. We know the plan. We've done a lot of things and make it, easier, better, more efficient, more modern, more transparent, all that. We know what we're doing, but anything could happen. And we learned in 2020 that anything could happen, and sometimes it does.
Yeah, absolutely. You never know what's gonna come your way, and you have to do the best you can to field it. So when it comes to times that you're in between elections, one thing that we know the city commissioners work on and are interested in is voter registration and voter education. What is a day in the life like when it's not election day and when you're still making your plans and you're trying your best to let people know what's going on?
Each of us, have different things that we do, but to be clear, it's election day for a long time. Just because election day ends for the public, like 8 o'clock, election day is over. Well, not for us. It takes us 20 days. We got to certify. Then we have to put everything back in its place. We have to clean everything up. We have to make sure everybody got paid, make sure all the machines got back. It's a process for us. So that is a big piece of information that we love to let people realize, that just because the polls close, election day is not over for us. As a matter of fact, from our vantage point, that's when our real work, our hardest work, our most laborious work, that's when it starts, after 8 o'clock, after the polls close. But after that, after we close out an election, we just do the things that, we feel that are, necessary. So, I've done a lot of things that I'm really proud of. One of the things I'm most proud of in my time here is my work with the schools. So when I started, I began just reaching out to schools. So I sent a letter to every school in the city, asking them if they wanted us to come out with a voting machine to teach kids about voting and, how to, what a voting machine looks like. And, so we do a lot of that. We set up mock elections. We have ballots that have sports players on them, or cartoon characters, or princesses, Disney princesses. We'll do any kind of ballot. We'll bring it to a school, let the kids, see, touch, feel what the voting machine is. We do a lot of student government elections now. So that's a big thing that we do. And we are constantly recruiting poll workers, especially student poll workers, which is another initiative that I brought to the Commissioner's Office of Philadelphia in a, you know, because I saw it in Chicago after I was elected, after I won the primary. Yeah, after I won the primary in 2015, I went to Chicago. I went to a couple places around the country, but one of them was Chicago to see how they do elections. And one of the things I picked up there was their student poll program, which is poll worker program, which was really impressive. And I thought that was something that could really make a difference in Philadelphia. And we've seen that it does. Just this past election, we had like over 600 student poll workers helping us get an in-person election day off the ground. And what we know is that kids that do it, they come back to do it again. And then our hope is that not only are they civically engaged, but they're lifetime voters because they've been voting, they know how it goes. And hopefully that translates into them being voters for a lifetime. Like that's what happened to me. So I got to see it firsthand as a young person. I watched it, election after election, and then it just got instilled in me. And hopefully we see that with every election as we get more and more crop of kids coming up to be student poll workers. We also do, we have a whole educational program in the prison. We make sure that our incarcerated folks that are eligible to vote are getting that opportunity. We're bringing access to them. We've, done a lot of social media stuff that the commissioner's office didn't have in the past. They never had a Twitter handle, or X, as it is called now. Our website is much more intuitive and user friendly. We are, much more out in the public. Wherever we can be, we're going to be there. If people invite us somewhere, we're going. Any opportunity we have to talk to people, we send letters out to every senior citizen group, Town Watch, Civic Association, but really we need more voices to just echo what we are saying. Because sometimes, especially in this political climate, we're finding that people don't want us to come because they're afraid we're talking about politics, but we're not talking about politics. We're talking about voting. They're two separate things. So the more folks that we get, like neighborhood networks that come along on this journey with us, and we get people to understand that it's not politics, it's civic engagement. They're very different. I think we'll get more help like that. That's what we need. So we're really great. We're really happy again to do this.
We're really happy that we could work with you as well. You mentioned so many groups of voters and of people that are involved in this process that it's not political. It's eventually getting the politicians in office, but it's a big logistical and civic responsibility for lots of groups in our society. One group you mentioned was students and the importance of getting people to understand how to vote and the importance of it young. When it comes to newly eligible voters who just graduated from public school or gotten eligible in the city of Philadelphia, is there any initiative that your team is looking at to specifically increase youth turnout and get the youngest voters to start voting? Are there any demographics that you're seeing particular increases or steady participation and turnout?
We do see that the younger, that area of age group of people, they are turning out in bigger numbers, the younger people. And part of that, and another thing that we're proud of is, like I said, when I first started, we were sending a letter to every school in the city, just asking if we can come out. And, that letter sometimes was getting to the right person. Other times it was sitting on the secretary's desk. Those school secretaries, they're like one-armed paper hangers. They're doing 100 things. And we were seeing that we were getting the same schools, participating all the time. We started to lobby the school district to get some help from the inside. Like maybe, get these kids registered. They know who's going to be 18. They know who these kids are. Let's work together. Let's get this done. We lobbied pretty hard, the school board a few years back, and they passed a resolution where they have these voter champions that are in the senior class that have the list, and they're supposed to be, getting kids registered to vote and managing voter registration drives, and they get some kind of stipend for that. At the school district, like everything else, they're overtaxed. They're doing a lot of things, but we are, striving to get that, to tie the loop on that, and to make sure that that's getting done, and seeing if there's a way that we can be more helpful, more strategic in what we're doing, to make sure that we're all not going to the same school, and to make sure that we're casting a wide enough net that we're getting all the kids. We've seen, I'm going to get a little off, but when I talk about the young people voting and the young people being student poll workers, when I first started, the governor has a award, a governor's civic engagement award. So you can get a civic engagement award from the governor if you are a poll worker, or you coordinate a voter registration drive. So I go to the award ceremony, which was at the Montgomery County Community College. So I drove out there, and only 2 schools from Philadelphia got the award. And I came back and I said to my staff, my personal office staff at the time, I said, that's never happening again. Like that, like, we're the biggest county. I just had to drive all the way to Montgomery County, and only 2 Philadelphia schools. This year we had, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but we cleaned the deck. We got more awards than anybody. So we're really super proud of that. But as good as it is, we know, because all those kids are turning 18 and we're not getting them all. We know that for as good as that is, it's still not right. So we're going to continue to do everything we can on that front, to get these kids that are turning 18 registered to vote. And then, if we get them registered to vote, and then we start talking to them about being a student poll worker and the money involved and how quick they get paid, and what the job is, their ears perk up, and then we get more kids involved. We just have to get into more schools. The issue is getting into the schools that we haven't been in. The schools that we've already been in once, it's easy. We just say it's us again, and they know why we're there. They know, and it just happens because they get it. But we have to do a better job of getting into the schools that we haven't been in yet. And that's what we're going to be working on this fall.
Mhm. Yeah, over the summer, I'm sure that kids are not really thinking about voting very much, but it's an all year round game for the city commissioners. We can't be wasting any time waiting for those kids to get back to school. Pivoting from age when it comes to voting, one of the unfortunate things about this political climate is there's been an uptick, especially since Trump has been elected, in claims of election fraud. Things like dead people are voting, or people are voting twice. Or I don't know, there might be specific scenarios that I haven't even mentioned. How does that affect people's interest in turning out? And what would you say to people who make those claims of election fraud?
First of all, they are claims. There is no systemic election fraud in Philadelphia's elections. I can't say that enough. It's ridiculous that we still have to keep hearing about it, but it just isn't there. And there's the people that are working the polls, the people that are doing the work are your friends and your neighbors. They're people that you work with, that you see at the doctors or at the bus stop. There is no systemic fraud in Philadelphia elections. And the fraud that you do see, it's like a one-off thing. It's not intentional. Maybe there's 2 Kellys, but the electronic poll book, even that simple, kind of fraud where if somebody might have signed under the wrong Kelly, John Kelly, there's how many John Kellys it could be. The electronic poll book has eliminated that too now. So even the unconsequential, non-intentional, even that little stuff doesn't happen anymore. We are doing a better job than ever of making sure that the redundancy that's always been there is more outward facing, because now you see that electronic poll book has just changed voting for Philadelphians. Like, we knew that it would make it, we knew it would make it stronger. We knew that it would make the lines go faster, more efficient. It's just, it's a game changer. And it's also a game changer for our poll workers because they're getting paid faster. But, you know, there is so much redundancy in elections and in the administration of elections that this fraud and all these fantastical stories that have been going around since 2020 and before actually 2016, it's ridiculous. And all of it's doing is chipping away at people's confidence in elections. And we can't have that, especially from our elected officials, regardless of party affiliation. We all got here the same way. And if you are a member of Congress, or you won on that same ballot or lost on that same ballot, like they are real, that's the facts. So when people start talking about, you know, one president's opinion of his own election theories, I can't take it anymore, because it's just wrong. It's fundamentally wrong, and it's doing irreparable harm to the integrity of elections and democracy, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. It sounds really frustrating as someone who sees so much work and care go into each election to get those claims that things are not running right. It's just one more thing that you have to fight against in the list of things that chip away at
Yeah,
voter
you're
turnout.
constantly fighting about it. You know, over and over again, you'll hear us all say, like, everybody that does this work from all over the country, irregardless, like I said, irregardless of party or anything, anybody that does this work will tell you the same thing. Nobody's going to sit here and say, well, we know we do this and this is a crapshoot. We don't know if we're going to get this. That's not it. It's all done. There's a method to it, and there's redundancy, and there's audits, and it's we have a safe, secure election in Philadelphia, and whatever those claims are, they are just that, just claims. There has not been any, you know, proven. None of those cases have been proven to be factual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It, like I said, just another thing to deal with in the many things that you're dealing with in a day. You've mentioned a few times how unprecedented and kind of scary the 2020 elections were, working as a commissioner then. In this political atmosphere, unfortunately, something that is apolitical, like voting, can get really dangerous sometimes. When the mail-in ballots were being counted for the 2020 election, two men from Virginia drove to Philadelphia with weapons, intending to stop you from counting the vote, and they were fortunately apprehended and prosecuted. How did being a commissioner during that election affect what you do now? How safe do you feel? And what are your concerns or hopes for upcoming elections?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that my concern is that the activity and the thoughts and opinions expressed in 2020 towards people that run elections, it has damaged the public so bad that we see that it's dripping out into other areas, and people are getting more violent, and elected officials that don't even do elections now, you know, are seeing their lives lost. I mean, what we just saw happen with those two elected officials that lost their life over this is, it's just ridiculous. But it was allowed to happen in 2020 over this election with baseless claims. And from there, it's just growing and growing. The hate is growing and growing, and the vitriol around it. It's just, it's awful. For me, 2020 has had a lasting impact on pretty much everything I do. And that's not hyperbole. I mean, I am, you know, I'm a female in this role. I'm single, you know, I live with my mother lives with me. You know, I worry constantly about, you know, my safety. I find myself looking in the rearview mirror, you know, like more than anything natural. You know, you look around, you see if anybody's whispering when you walk into a room. Uh, my mother, you know, people say, hey, if we go on vacation and somebody says to you, what do you do for a living? You don't have any trouble telling them what you do, right? If I go on vacation and somebody asks me what I do, I tell them I work at Acme or I work for the city. I don't tell anybody that doesn't know me what I do for a living because I don't know what I'm going to get. That's really, that's the truth. Like you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know whether somebody's going to be like, oh, that's interesting, which is a normal, which you would hope you would get, or oh, who would want that awful job? You know, you could get, oh my, you steal elect, like you don't know what you're going to get. So it's better off to just not say anything because you don't. It's a box you don't want to open the lid to. Um, it does affect. It has had an effect on me. You know, in 2020 we followed all the protocol, all the security experts. We did everything they told us to do. We went to the convention center. We held up that November election in that convention center. We counted ballots. You know, with all the new equipment, and we had every security precaution, and still, we had to leave our homes and stay in a hotel that was attached to the convention. Imagine you have to leave your house and you have to go stay in a hotel that's attached to the convention center so that you don't have to go out into the world to get to work. You can go right from your room to the convention center floor for your safety because you're going to be safe here. This is how we're going to guarantee that you, Lisa Deeley, as chairwoman at the time of this election, you are going to be safe here. Imagine. That's horrible enough, right? Then imagine getting a call at 5:30 in the morning that you and your deputy have to go down to the floor because law enforcement folks want to talk to you.
Mm.
And then you have a female cop and a male cop flanking you in the convention center where you're supposed to be safe everywhere you go. If you see photographs of me from then, there's a male cop and a female cop walking around the convention center with me. Then finally was able to get rid of them. We came back. It got about 2-3 days later, we got a call. They were coming back. I don't know why. Something popped on social media or something. I don't know. But just imagine in the place where you were supposed to be safe, you got cops. So,
That's terrifying. Yeah.
and it's a choice. It's a choice that you make.
You don't want to make the ultimate
I mean, I'm only a
sacrifice.
city commissioner. I'm not the mayor or the president, or the
Yeah.
governor. I'm
You
the
only
city
have so
commissioner.
much
When
power.
I got elected, I'm like, this will be a nothing job. Nobody even knows who the city commissioner is. I could do this. I could
Yeah.
do this. Then all of a sudden, I'm
A
getting
lot of people
death
know.
threats and I got a police escort everywhere I go. Even this, I could tell you, even like
Yeah.
the last presidential, there was issues.
Mm.
Not to any level, believe me. But, we didn't, I didn't really talk about it then. As if you've been following me in this whole cycle, like since I've been elected, I didn't really talk much about the threats. That's a personal choice. I'm not saying anybody's right or wrong. It was just a personal choice for me not to talk about them because I thought, the more you talk about it, the more you're going to get. So I
Yeah.
just
And
decided,
don't want to
not.
attract anymore. So
It was a personal choice. Other people did not share that opinion, but to each his own.
yeah.
I talk freely about it now because it's over. But it was pretty bad for me.
Yeah.
It was pretty bad for me.
I'm so sorry that happened to
Yeah,
you. That just sounds terrible and
it
like
was terrible.
nothing that
My
anyone should
mother
have
had, I
to
had to
go
send
through.
my mother to go stay with family because, I couldn't leave my mom home alone and I'm in a hotel room. It's
Oh,
like, I can't even begin to tell you what it was like. It was horrible. And
yeah.
imagine
It had a huge impact on you.
it's all during COVID too. So
Yeah.
you have to put the COVID, you have to add COVID to the mix,
Well, that's always the wild card when we're
right?
talking about
Uh, you
2020.
know, so it was awful. It was awful. Um, I'm so grateful to to the staff of the commissioner's office that, you know, you couldn't ask for better people to stand with you and by you and hold you up through that. Um, when people, everybody talks about the November election, but for me, it was really the June election that I think was the true test of grit for
Mm-hmm.
what this office does and how they're able to accomplish great things. And they ensured, it's another thing people, forget because they just go right to November. But if you can remember June and you remember watching the news and the long lines of people in big cities that were waiting to vote for hours and hours, and they had lawn chairs out and they were
Yeah,
sleeping. We didn't have any of that in Philadelphia. We had smart people
got it done.
put a plan together, executed it. People, Turner yelled and screamed and turned their nose up. And I lost friends. I have people that don't talk to me to this day over it.
Sure.
But
Well,
we did it. We did
we
it.
do have to wrap it up at this moment,
Sorry.
but definitely a
I get
shout
on
out
now. You get
to,
me on that 2020
oh
thought
yeah,
thing.
we could
I
talk
lose
about that
I
forever.
go off the
We do
rails.
have to wrap it up at the moment, but it sounds like your staff is doing amazing work in a really tense time for our country and our city. And thank you so much for your time, for continuing to work despite everything that happened in 2020, and for continuing to get the word out about how important it is to vote. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everyone who ends up watching this. We hope this has given you a better understanding of the city commissioner's role and how government works. I'm Victoria Alpha
Vote.phila.gov.
Laveau. And so, oh, sorry, there's an important URL for us. We need to remember a website, vote.phila.gov. Is that
That's
right?
it.
Okay, vote.phila.gov. Got to go to that. I'm Victoria Alfred Laveau for PNN, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much, Commissioner Deeley. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.